Mr. Chairman.
Very well. The Sergeant at Arms.
The Honorable Senator Martin Heinrich, United States Senator from the state of New Mexico.
Very well. Let's welcome the Honorable Senator Martin Heinrich to the House chambers. Welcome, Senator. Very well. Good morning, Senator Heinrich. We look forward to hearing your remarks today. Welcome to the joint session.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, and I want to thank the Majority Leader and the Speaker for having me today, and it's good to be back with all of you. Thank you for inviting me. It's been 2 years, and a lot has changed since the last time I've had a chance to address a joint session. We are facing a new administration in the White House, if you haven't noticed, and frankly, dangerous new threats to American values and freedoms. In just the first week in office, President Trump has ordered a federal hiring freeze that will impact New Mexico directly. He's floated the idea of bringing back the CIA's use of black site prisons and torture interrogation techniques. He's imposed a gag order on federal agencies and renewed talk of a wall on our southern border. And all of this culminated with an executive order blocking refugees and, at least temporarily, even green card holders from re-entering the United States. Like many New Mexicans, I was heartsick by what I see as an attempt to fundamentally change our American values. We are not a country that discriminates based on how one prays. We are not a nation that turns our back on the innocent victims of terrorism or the allies who actually risked their own lives so that American soldiers might live. President Trump's actions seek to turn us into the kind of authoritarian nation that we have always stood up to. This, in my view, is not greatness. This is, in fact, un-American. And I will not stand aside. I will not stand aside as the values that created the greatest nation on earth are trampled. Our immigrant communities have helped to write the cultural, the social, the economic story of this great nation. I know this firsthand. My own father is an immigrant who came to America as a boy from Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Had this same twisted logic been applied to him, he could have been turned away at our border. His life, his years serving in the Navy, his years raising an American family would have never existed. I wouldn't be here today. So I know the promise that America represents for families. And I know how hard immigrants work, how much they believe in this country, how much they're willing to give back, and how different my own life would have been if America had turned my father away. The challenges that our nation faces are significant, but there are solutions before us here in New Mexico that are pragmatic and that uphold our American values. And I know that here in the Roundhouse, the budget difficulties that you face are more challenging than ever. But we should all remember that it is even tougher for the families in our state who are struggling to make ends meet. An honest and sober assessment tells us that New Mexico is the only state in the nation that has failed to see real economic recovery since the Great Recession, despite our numerous rounds of tax cuts. I really wish the solution was in the tax code, or in talking tough about locking up criminals and throwing away the key, or even in fighting about driver's licenses year in and year out. It would be easy if the poll-tested policies that build a political resume aligned with a better and a brighter future for New Mexicans. But that approach has failed to produce results. We need to take bold action that invests in our people and our communities. New Mexicans are looking to all of us to offer real solution, to turn things around and address the systemic challenges that our state now faces. Despite the challenges, I know that we all share an enduring love for our home state, and I know that we can turn New Mexico around. Job growth should be our first, our second, and our third priority. We need new industries and new businesses to call New Mexico home. New Mexico has opportunities for any new business, but underfunded schools, a multi-generational cycle of poverty, and an inability to govern and invest for a stronger future are what keep business leaders from creating new jobs in our state. These are the issues, not tax cuts, that make businesses all too content to grow in Colorado or Utah, in Arizona or Texas instead of New Mexico. Our motto is, it grows as it goes. We are only going to grow if the direction we go in is one that makes smart investments and hard choices that put us on a stronger path. My friends, it is long past time to put our permanent fund to work for early childhood education. I want to thank all the members who passed that through the First House Committee this morning. And I want to say there is no magic bullet. There will be no bailouts or giveaways of federal mineral rights. That is more pipe dream than policy. But even if it were serious policy, a prescription like that would take 2 decades to make a difference. New Mexico's children cannot wait decades. Inaction is moral failure for a state with the 3rd largest permanent fund in the country and far too many children who show up to their first day of kindergarten without the skills that they need to succeed. The choice could not be any clearer. Our future, our children's future, and our economy depend on it. A failure to invest in early childhood education compounds the problem of poverty that we all know needs to be addressed. So in addition to dedicating a sustainable portion of our permanent fund to early childhood education, I am calling on all of you to join me in reforming our approach to poverty and implementing a coordinated system that puts whole families on the path towards economic opportunity. We know that new programs, new money, are simply not in the cards for us, but we can do far better with what we have. The 2-generation approach can coordinate programs across our state's human services, workforce development, education, and healthcare agencies so that they can work more effectively to put parents and children on the path to success together. I've teamed up with my Republican colleague, Senator Susan Collins of Maine, to introduce the 2-Generation Economic Empowerment Act in the U.S. Senate. This is the first major bipartisan bill in decades that has a real chance to fundamentally change the way that our states and our communities and that local service providers help whole families overcome intergenerational poverty. While multiple programs exist to help low-income parents and their children, they have individual funding streams and structural barriers that keep services for adults and children separated by nearly insurmountable barriers. Low-income families willing to sacrifice, willing to save, to study, and to work to better themselves are met with uncoordinated and what can often feel like uncaring bureaucracy. The 2-generation approach is at its core about effective government. The 2-generation approach is evidence-based, data-driven, bipartisan policy that has proven to work. I have visited some great examples in New Mexico of what it looks like at the local scale. The United Way's Early Learning Center right here in Santa Fe offers year-round, full-day services for children and families. Hot meals, health care, teaching and learning technology, employment and social services assistance for parents, and home visitation for new families. By implementing the two-generation approach on a larger statewide scale, we can put whole families and even communities on a path towards economic success. There are already states that are leading the way, including our neighbors in places like Colorado and Utah, and showing great results. By better investing in our people, we can pull New Mexico out of the economic slump that has persisted for far too long. And I know that part of our investment in our community has to be defending the major health care coverage gains we have seen thanks to the Affordable Care Act and to Medicaid expansion. I will be the first to tell you that the ACA is far from perfect. And I have led the charge to help improve the law by repealing burdensome regulations for small business owners, rolling back taxes on employer-provided health plans that cover so many hardworking families in our state. But despite what some partisan critics may say, the ACA has led a dramatic increase in the number of insured New Mexicans and provide hundreds of thousands of our citizens with critical and in some cases life-saving care. Our communities that confront the public health crisis that is opioid addiction and the damage done by our state's behavioral health shakeup cannot afford to see the chaos to our healthcare system that repealing the ACA would bring. New Mexico cannot afford to lose the billions of dollars in economic activity or the thousands of jobs that the ACA and Medicaid expansion have brought to our state. Because of the law, the healthcare sector has been our strongest area of job growth for the last 5 years. New Mexico added 4,000 healthcare jobs in 2015 alone. If the ACA is repealed without any real replacement in its place, it's estimated that we could lose 19,000 jobs here in our state. And many of these jobs are in the rural communities and hospitals where we need them most. When you visit rural hospitals in places like Clayton and Raton and Santa Rosa, you see the vital role that these hospitals play in our communities. In most cases, these hospitals are the only healthcare providers for many, many miles in any direction. And these hospitals are often the major employer in town. Speaking of communities in jeopardy, we also have our work to cut out for us in standing up for New Mexico's federal workforce in light of a new administration hiring freeze. In this hostile climate, it will be harder than ever for our national labs, for our bases, for our ports of entry, for FLETC and WIP and our incredible national monuments and wildlife refuges. They serve national missions and are often cornerstones in local economies across our state. Our federal missions support tens of thousands of jobs and bring billions in economic activity into our state. Through my roles on the Senate Armed Services, Intelligence, and Energy Committees, I am constantly seeking to acquire new investments and position our federal installations for forward-looking missions and sustainable futures. In the last year alone, I worked hard to see the relocation of 2 F-16 training squadrons to Holloman Air Force Base and secured a new 143-soldier air defense artillery detachment at White Sands Missile Range. These new missions will support hundreds of new jobs. I helped Dell start up its public-private partnership to expand the commercial hours at Santa Teresa's port of entry and secured millions of dollars of investments to improve our ports to support our fast-growing export economy. I've stood with local communities to create the Rio Grande del Norte and Oregon Mountains Desert Peaks National Monuments, and I won't back down from defending the public lands that we all cherish. I've helped local companies like Aquila and Raytheon K-Tech in Albuquerque and Alaska Structures in Las Cruces to secure major contracts worth tens of millions of dollars to manufacture essential equipment for our military. And earlier this month, I was proud to join the community and workers in Carlsbad whose tireless efforts led to the safe reopening of WIP. I'm committed to setting the stage for future growth and sustainable futures for all of New Mexico's vital contributions to our nation's security, its innovation, its prosperity. And I want New Mexicans to fill those jobs. Think about just the opportunity that exists at Los Alamos and Sandia, where by the end of 2020, a third of the folks working at those two installations alone will be eligible for retirement. That means 5,000 jobs that New Mexico graduates could fill. Last year, I brought together the leadership from LANL, along with our community colleges and our universities, to talk about the concrete steps that we must be taking to build a better education and training pipeline to prepare New Mexican students for those science and engineering jobs at our labs. And when we expose students to science and technology, to engineering and math, they become the next generation of innovators and the future backbone of our state's economy. There is no greater opportunity for folks with that training than in the clean energy industry, where New Mexico stands to gain thousands of jobs in the years to come. With our wind, our sun, our geothermal resources, our labs, our entrepreneurs, we should be exporting pollution-free electricity to the nation and reaping our share of this fast-growing job market. Wind and solar are growing 12 times faster than the rest of the American economy. Wind tech is the fastest growing job in our country, and nearly every wind tech, think about this, works in a rural county, places where we need those jobs. We are seeing this change our state. In October, hundreds gathered to sign a 180-foot-long wind turbine blade in front of the Curry County Courthouse in Clovis. This gigantic blade joined two others on a tower that will be part of the Grady Wind Energy Center, one of 3 projects bringing nearly $1 billion of investment into eastern New Mexico. Think about that, $1 billion. 500 construction workers, dozens of permanent and wind tech and maintenance jobs, and a permanently expanded tax base. That's what that blade represents. And this job creation story is similar for the El Cabo wind farm in Torrance County and the utility scale solar that we're seeing installed across our state. Making New Mexico the epicenter of opportunity means creating a better state policy environment that attracts this investment in our state's solar and wind resources. Instead of repealing solar incentives, we should lead by passing pro-growth tax policies like solar investment tax credits. And we have to build new transmission. In fact, we should recommit to New Mexico's Renewable Energy Transmission Authority, which has been line item vetoed in a move that can only be called penny wise and pound foolish. Unless we are able to site transmission lines to send that clean power generated here to hungry markets in California or Arizona or Texas, we will be capping the amount of major job-creating projects that we can build. This is America's future, and one where New Mexico has the opportunity to shine, but only if we make the right choices today. If we want to give our state a prosperous new future, we need our best and brightest to be able to find these opportunities, to build their careers and start their families here. This winter, I got a chance between Christmas and New Year's to take my boys out, in particular my 13-year-old son Carter, on his first successful elk hunt on public land in Catron County. And it was the kind of experience you never forget, the kind of experience that you can really only have in the land of enchantment. And as we sat up on a high mesa looking out over the horizon, I wasn't thinking about the freezer that we might fill. I was marveling at all the potential that exists for New Mexico. And it is as boundless as our big skies and our mountains and our mesas, making our state a better place for all our children and their families. That is what drives me to serve this beautiful place that we all call home. We know that all the potential we could ever ask for sits in classrooms and in homes and in churches across this great state. New Mexicans elected all of us to find solutions to our great challenges and to move our state forward. I join you in that fight. Thank you for letting me address you today.